Have you heard the news? Anwar Ikalazar Iarigo bounced into the room, eager to share the excitement with his beloved. Have I ever? It's a bloody outrage. What were they thinking? What? Anwar stared at his husband and tried to make sense of it. They're in love. They're going to get married. It's great news, he protested. Oh, that news. Right, yes. I was talking about the news from Anvil. The money priests have said raiding and plundering are unvirtuous. What? They've said what? Anwar was vaguely aware that his mouth was still hanging open. He couldn't make sense of what Filio was saying, but he shut his mouth to avoid looking like a landed fish. You heard me. Apparently being a corsair, sailing the seas for a living, attacking our enemies and seizing their things, it's unvirtuous. Synod says so. They said the corsairs were unvirtuous? Filio always liked to exaggerate these things, take the worst possible interpretation and get riled up about it. Nothing like that, no. They said the Lassambrians were unvirtuous for taking and not earning, or something. Hang on, I've got it written down here somewhere. Filio turned away and started rifling through the papers on the nearby table. Well, that's different then. The Lassambrians have been our enemies for centuries. It makes sense that the things they do are unvirtuous. Filio abandoned the search and turned back to face Anwar with a querying look on his face. Anwar, what is it that the Marchers say? The easiest lie is one you tell yourself. We raid the Grendel, the Lassambrians raid us. If it's unvirtuous for the Lassambrians to raid us, how can it possibly be virtuous for us to raid them? It was a good point, and Anwar wasn't sure what to make of it. Theft was unvirtuous, everyone knew that, but he'd never considered that that applied to raiding. That seemed different somehow, but what if it wasn't? He didn't like to think about what it would mean for folks like Filio and himself who made their living as corsairs. Filio interrupted his thoughts before they could set sail. I don't know what we're going to do about it. At that, Anwar beamed. Answers were something he was good at. I do, he said emphatically. We'll set sail on the evening tide. We'll find the biggest, richest Grendel ship we can find, kill their crew, free their slaves, and plunder their wealth. This is a summer storm. By the time we get back to port, it will have blown out. The priest will have it all sorted. And if they haven't? Filio demanded. Anwar looked troubled again. He had no answer to that. At the spring equinox, the Freeborn National Assembly passed clear statements on the future of the prosperity of the Brass Coast. Despite the troubles blighting the coast with the invasions by the Yatun and the Grendel, the Assembly are looking to the future by encouraging the building of a mithril exchange in Karaman and a hostelry in Madruga. As usual, all the statements that achieved a greater majority were disseminated through the territories of the Brass Coast, from Sobral to Mora, to Sirak and Damata. Despite the troubles blighting the Brass Coast, with barbarians threatening every territory except Madruga, the Freeborn continue to look to the future, refusing to be bowed by the Orc barbarians. The words of the Synod and the Senate have created a wealth of opportunities. A mithril exchange that may help raise the materials to restore the burning falcon. Proposals by the talented architect Angelina I Duarte I Riqueza to strengthen Segura. An offer to pay a bounty to any Imperial who will come to fight the Lassambrian Yatun. The chance to build a salvage port in Madruga, of arguments over the idea of theft versus the idea of taking from a defeated foe, and of a chance to secure the Broken Shore bounty. If nothing else, the people of the Brass Coast will be busy during the summer solstice. An opportunity to build a mithril ministry in Karaman exists. The Freeborn National Assembly believe it is a prosperous act to seek out the opportunity to build a mithril exchange in Karaman. Effinia I Maristella I Riqueza, Freeborn Assembly, Spring 383 YE. Upheld. 176-0, greater majority. Following the successful commission and construction of the Cinderpath Exchange in Casanea, the attention of the Freeborn has turned to the rich hills of Serra Briante and Serra Damata. The peaks are already the site of both the Great Mine of Briante and the Damatian Cliffs, and both are dotted with smaller mines. The mountains are abundant with precious metals, and it is not unusual that news of a miner striking a thin vein of mithril would reach the town of Damata. When the first rumblings around the Cinderpath Exchange began among the Highborn, there were some in the Brass Coast who immediately saw an opportunity. The Iliscano are a small family these days, but they have illustrious roots. Their ancestors were amongst the first trailblazers to try and settle in Karaman. Their parador stands in a plum location in the western Jade Range, alongside one of the major roads leading down towards Segura and Madruga, perfectly positioned to encourage miners fresh from the mountains to trade their valuable ore in return not only for excellent prices, but also an opportunity to rest in finely appointed surroundings. Now, with the backing of the National Assembly, the Iliscano have something concrete to offer the people of the Brass Coast. Refurbishing the Parador of Dust would cost 16 white granite, 32 crowns, and a Senate motion or way leave. The designs of the Demiro of the Liscano family, Leticia Iliscano Eguera, artfully weave the dual nature of such a construction, taking into account the necessity for a central storage warehouse along with sufficiently comfortable rooms to entice traders and merchants. By leaning into, and drawing inspiration from, the almost stark nature of the warehouse, Leticia has made the surrounding Parador a thing of beauty in comparison. The Parador of Dust would function just like the Cinderpath Exchange. It would allow quarry and mine owners to bring their mithril bourse notes here and exchange them for an honest price. Those using the exchange would be secure in the knowledge that not only were they enriching themselves and receiving a just reward for their prosperity by selling to their countryfolk, they would know that the mithril would go towards supporting the Brass Coast. The ministry would need an imperial title to oversee it, the mistress of the Dust Parador perhaps, appointed annually by bourse vote of those freeborn citizens who own a fleet. In addition to having custodianship of the ministry, the Liscano family who have proposed the title suggest that the responsibilities of the title holder include securing more mithril for the Brass Coast, explicitly for the betterment of the nation. Obviously, as with similar proposed commissions such as the Cinderpath Exchange or the Iron Round Tower in Varushka, construction of the Parador of Dust would have a negative impact on the amount of mithril being offered for sale on the public auction at Anvil each summit. For the money spent into the Parador of Dust, for 100 crowns, 5 wains of mithril would be produced. For 196 crowns, 9 wains of mithril would be produced. For 277 crowns, 12 wains of mithril would be produced. For 335 crowns, 14 wains of mithril would be produced. For 365 crowns, 15 wains of mithril would be produced. An architect has answered the Freeborn National Assembly's call for assistance. Statement: We, the Freeborn of Segura, will not yield our home. We look to the future and the many fruits it shall yield. We summon an architect of great virtue to spearhead the repair and prosperous rejuvenation of Segura. Prosperity provides. Rego y Zemres, Freeborn Assembly, Spring 383YE, upheld, 180-0, greater majority. Angelina y Duarte y Riqueza is an architect who trained with the renowned Cassia y Ramoras y Rego, the same woman who helped restore the towers of Andush after the liberation of Segura. Angelina has returned to her family in the town of Anasel and has immediately begun drafting up plans and suggestions for ways to harness the potential of Segura. These plans include the fortifying of Burnish. She also has a plan to reignite the Zemres Islanders' interest in the building of the Iron Kanat. Obviously, Angelina is concerned about the presence of the Lasambrian Yotun, as are all citizens of Segura. The recent unanimous decision of the Imperial Senate not to cede Segura to the Orcs, however, has filled her with the confidence that the Empire will soon drive the barbarians back again. She clearly agrees with the National Assembly that the Freeborn should be looking to the future, not fearing the present. Once Andush is freed, a fortified caravanserai could be constructed in the centre of the region. The caravanserai would require a Senate motion and cost 75 wains of white granite and 150 crowns. Angelina looks first to the defence of the territory. She argues that the construction of a fortification is crucial to ensure the effective defence of Segura. She draws inspiration from the plans of the Imperatrix to construct a wall of fortifications across the Bay of Catazar. Once complete, these fortresses will serve a vital role in keeping the Grendel at bay. But the same logic applies to Segura, which is threatened by the Yotun. A fortification built here would have blunted the Yotun attack and helped to turn the Lasumbrians back. It would be a folly to attempt to build a fortification now, while the Yotun contest the land. It would be wonderful to have a fortification in the territory, bolstering the defenders, but it would take up to a year to build, and if the Yotun managed to conquer it before it was complete, then it would be turned against the Empire. Moreover, a fortification by itself would be useful, but it would be much more useful still if Imperial mercenaries were encouraged to defend it. Thus, Angelina has created plans to construct a massive fortification, a beautiful caravanserai at the important town of Zunodin. The caravanserai would serve as a focus for the towers of Andush, helping to restore them quickly to their former glory, but its primary function would be to provide defence of the region and by extension the whole territory. Angelina's genius, though, is in linking the fortification to the towers of Andush and the constant stream of traders who ply their wares along the roads that the towers protect. These traders would be only too willing to hire guards from the caravanserai to escort them on the dangerous roads, so any military unit that was assigned to defend the region would be paid handsomely for the work. Once complete, any starting military unit assigned to defend the caravanserai would gain 8 random resources. Upgraded military units would gain proportionately more. The statement has raised enough support that the Zemres Islanders have suggested building the Iron Kanat again. The Iron Kanat would cost 50 weirwood, 100 crowns, and would require a Senate motion. The Zemrys Islanders, having been settled in Segura for a year, have looked again to the possibility of improving the fertility of the Sobral grasses. Inspired by the words of Rego Zemres, they offer the suggestion, once again, of a system of reinforced irrigation ditches which they claim will transform the sandy soils of the grasses into productive farmland that rivals the fertile lands of the marches to the north. A great work that the islanders have proposed to call the Iron Kanat. The Iron Kanat is an ambitious design that will provide water to every farm in the region, allowing the islanders' farms to produce much more than they could possibly consume themselves. Once complete, it would be able to supply the freeborn armies, ensuring their supply was guaranteed. The Iron Kanat would cause an immediate increase in the freeborn capacity to support military forces, allowing them to support one more army or navy than they currently do. The Senate unanimous rejection of the motion to give up any Brass Coast land to the Yatoon has been well received. There is some confusion over the judgment concerning the Zemrys Islanders' farms, which are not currently occupied by the Yatoon. Statement: the Zemrys Islanders' prosperity is unquestioned and exemplary. We want to see the wider Brass Coast learn from them to strengthen and enhance national identity and virtue. We invite those whose farms are currently under the yoke of the Lassambrian occupation to travel to other territories in the meantime, so their talent and prosperity do not go to waste. We invite the Zemrys Islanders to help us to understand and integrate more fully their ways, traditions, and methods. Hembeneth Iguera, Freeborn Assembly, Spring 383YE, upheld 160-0, greater majority. The core nature of the Freeborn is a strong desire to live free, to be able to experience life fully. When the people of Zemrys fled their island, they did so because a few thousand people had literally no chance of holding off the Grendel Empire. Now that they enjoy the safety of the Empire, however, now that they can face their enemies on equal terms, they are considerably more ready for the fight. None among them has any interest in fleeing their new lands. To the contrary, they are keen to do what they can to support the effort against the invaders. Their spirits have been bolstered by the unanimous rejection of the Senate motion contemplating ceding land to the Yatoon in exchange for peace. There was some concern at first, but once the purpose of the gesture became clear, it has served to rally people on the coast, including the islanders. However, the islanders are somewhat confused by the wording of Hembeneth's judgment, which strongly implies that large numbers of them are labouring as thralls for the Yatoon. The lands that they have been given are in Yellow Chase and the Sobral grasses. The regions the Yatoon have conquered are Andros and parts of the Androsserai, so there are no islanders enslaved by the Lassambrians. The judgment does produce a strong positive effect, though. The islanders are keen to stress to everyone that they see themselves as part of the Brass Coast now. They have their own unique history and heritage, and they remain fiercely proud of that, but they view themselves as an integral part of the Freeborn family. As such, they feel the best way to demonstrate not just that they are here to stay, but that they are fully part of the coast, is to contribute to the defence of their new homeland. The islanders have little in the way of fighting strength, but they are wealthy. The Empire did such a phenomenal job of evacuating them that they were able to bring all their worldly possessions, including their herds of animals, and the like with them. Potential mandate. It is better to live free than to die, or serve as a thrall. We send named priest with 50 doses of liao to convince the people of the coast to dig deep and support the defence of the Brass Coast. Let us commit every coin to the cause of our freedom. Synod Mandate, Freeborn National Assembly. The Zemrys Islanders and other freeborn families propose to pay for the Imperial military units to come and fight in the defence of the coast. They have talked to the civil service, and they have confirmed that they could support the islanders' intent, and the islanders and others have committed to covering the costs. If the above mandate were passed, then every military unit that supported an army fighting in Segura would receive payment provided by the islanders, a sum of 5 crowns for a starting military unit, proportionally more for an upgraded or enchanted unit. This would be in addition to any guerdon allocated by the Quartermaster General of the Imperial armies. There is little concern that the Quartermaster might attempt to duck his responsibilities and not give the guerdon to any armies fighting in Segura this season, and just let the islanders cover the costs. But most people are content that the clear will of the Senate expressed by the unanimous motion ensures that they won't be cheated in this way. The Freeborn National Assembly suggested that the citizens of the Brass Coast could try to find salvageable weirwood. A corsair has provided an alternative. Statement: to encourage citizens of the Brass Coast to exercise their prosperity by exploring the waters of the Bay of Catazar for salvageable weirwood. Franco e Irigo, Freeborn Assembly, Spring 383YE. Upheld, 160-0, greater majority. The statement of principle raised by Franco e Irigo has caused some confusion among the Freeborn when it was first distributed. The people of the Brass Coast are already doing everything currently in their power to search the Bay of Catazar for any valuable salvage. Such finds are not common, and rarely include usable supplies of weirwood, but it is not impossible. Isidore e Boyaga e Irego, renowned corsair, returns to harbour in Free Landing just long enough to offer a suggestion before returning once again to prowl the bay. Isidore's plan centres on the island of Perideo, which lies fast to the east of Atalaya and the Shining Pillar, out where Madruga merges into an open sea. Isidore claims the island contains a potent spring regio, and while regularly racked with deadly storms, it is perfectly positioned to allow freeborn corsairs to strike at the Grendel. Fully 1/3 of the island is taken up by a natural harbour, which could be exploited and reinforced to allow for more ships to be able to moor there. Building the haven of Perideo would require a Senate motion and cost 25 wains of weirwood and 50 crowns. By constructing a haven on Perideo, the Senate could allow passing vessels to drop off any valuable salvage they have managed to recover while sailing the seas. The site already sees a surprisingly large amount of driftwood and other salvage washing up on the shore, perhaps as a result of the influence of the spring regio. A haven constructed here could gather that up and ensure that those who found it obtained a good price for their flotsam and jetsam. Grendel ships are also known to transport small amounts of weirwood. The orcs have a greater hunger for the material while possessing only a limited supply of their own, a supply the Empire has recently interrupted with their raid against the island of Balsagoth. By providing a convenient haven for Grendel hunting corsairs, the haven of Perideo would be the ideal place for any privateers who have captured supplies of Grendel weirwood to offload their bounty. For the money spent into the haven of Perideo, 6 crowns would create 12 random ingots or measures, 13 crowns would create 20 random ingots or measures, 20 crowns would create 28 random ingots or measures, 37 crowns would create 35 random ingots or measures and 1 wain of weirwood, 55 crowns would create 40 random ingots or measures and 2 wains of weirwood. The Virtue Assembly of Prosperity passed a statement which calls into question some of the actions of the freeborn. Statement: Prosperity teaches us that we earn the fruits of our labour and despise the thieving bandit. The Lysambrian orcs have taken, not earned. They have perverted the virtue of prosperity, which they claim to respect. We must use the tools available to us to show them the error of their ways. Cesare Enzo di Trevento, Prosperity Assembly, Spring 383 YE, upheld, 238-0, greater majority. Not all statements of principle that were spread amongst the territories of the Brass Coast came from the Freeborn National Assembly. One came from the Virtue Assembly of Prosperity. Cesare Enzo di Trevento's statement, which passed without opposition, has proven to be a contentious one. The suggestion that by looting and plundering the Lyssambrians pervert the virtue of prosperity is not taken well by the corsairs of the nation. Indeed, the Red Wing Corsairs have provided much in the way of wealth for the nation, going some way towards funding the raising of the destroyed Freeborn Storm. A few people attempt to make sophisticated moral distinctions between the actions of the Lyssambrians and those of the Corsairs, but they are not widely accepted. Although most people accept that the Assembly probably didn't mean it that way, they claim the only reasonable interpretation of the words is that privateering isn't virtuous. The Freeborn National Assembly could take the Prosperity Assembly's message to heart and encourage Corsairs to stop privateering. This mandate, if passed, will cause all fleets engaged in privateering to suffer a loss equivalent to 1 rank. Though the statement mostly has naysayers among the freeborn, there are some who support it. Victor y Zancho Iguera, Domiro of the Zancho family, has long called for the Brass Coast to focus on trade. He believes that by encouraging the Corsairs away from privateering, they will instead focus on trading with foreign nations, which could work towards theoretically increasing the standing of the Brass Coast and the Empire in that nation. Indeed, as shown with the situation in Axos, there is a lot that can be achieved when traders work together. Potential mandate. We must not allow ourselves to act as lazy wastrels. The freeborn are as prosperous as anyone alive. We sent named priests with 25 doses of liao to encourage the freeborn captains to turn away from privateering and look for more honest rewards. Synod mandate, Freeborn National Assembly. If this mandate were passed, then all fleets engaging in privateering would suffer a loss equal to 1 rank for at least the next 2 seasons. In practical terms, any military action that was considered as privateering in terms of providing votes towards the Broken Shore bounty would be affected by the mandate. Alternatively, the Freeborn National Assembly could make clear that the work that goes into privateering is still work, and encourage Corsairs to privateer. This mandate, if passed, will cause all fleets not engaged in privateering to suffer a loss equivalent to 1 rank. For each of those that support the original statement, there are at least 10 that cry against it. One such is Chiara Iarigo, a Hakima of Karaman. She argues that turning away from privateering, from what makes so many of the freeborn feel freeborn, could throw the nation into disarray. Her suggestion is to instead celebrate the actions that have led the Brass Coast to where they are now. It is right for the freeborn to be daring. Potential mandate. We must never shy away from what makes us who we are. We send named priests with 100 doses of liao to encourage the Corsairs to engage in privateering. Synod mandate, Freeborn National Assembly. Such a mandate would have no direct effect, but it would mean that every captain on the coast would redouble their efforts to show that privateering is not just daring and dangerous, but bloody hard work. People are still fired up by the raids on the Grendel territories, and with this kind of encouragement, another opportunity like that would be simply bound to turn up soon. These two mandates are in competition with each other. If both were raised, the one that achieved the highest margin would be the one that was enacted. The statement of principle supporting what the House of Guerra stands for is met with great interest. The renewed wave of interest has increased the amount of time before this opportunity lapses. The information presented previously is included again for completeness. Statement. The Freeborn National Assembly are gladdened by the opportunity to build the House of Guerra. We strongly support what it stands for and wish to see this institution constructed upon our shores. We entreat the civil service to extend the opportunity for a season or two so that we may have time to gather the resources once we are not as pressed in respect to matters of national security. Violante y Abasolo y Riqueza. Freeborn Assembly, Spring 383YE, upheld. 216-0, greater majority. The judgment entreating the civil service to extend the opportunity to construct the House of Guerra is met with considerable confusion. The civil service confirmed they don't create or control opportunities. Their role is to collect information regarding them and distribute that to the relevant audience. They have no power over such matters. That is down to the motivation of the people involved or the circumstances which lead to the opportunity being identified. The only way to extend an opportunity is to address the situation directly. Furthermore, the civil service have checked and rechecked the situation, and they are as certain as they can be that the opportunity to create the House of Guerra is still available if the Imperial Senate wishes to take advantage of it. The seminary must be completed soon, that is true, but the House of Guerra is a separate commission, albeit one intended to be built nearby. The inspiration to create the House of Guerra originally came from a judgment passed by Constanza y Calamar y Guerra, urging the people of the Brass Coast to take pride in the ties that bind them together, to support those who find themselves in need of family. People are delighted to know that there is interest in the seminary and pleased to hear that the Freeborn Assembly backs the construction. The idea was that alongside the Zemres Seminary in Calvos, a hostelry and office called the Hand of Guerra could be constructed. It would require a commission by the Imperial Senate or the bearer of an Imperial wayleave. The structure would require 20 wains of white granite to build and 40 crowns in labour costs. It would take 3 months to complete. The commission would create an imperial title. The suggestion is that it be called the Hand of Guerra. That would be responsible for helping refugees adjust to new lives in the Empire, as well as for spreading the philosophy of Guerra to the Empire, and indeed the world. To aid them in this, supporters would make amounts of liao available to help the Hand of Guerra support mandates that oppose the institution of slavery, or help those fleeing oppression to find sanctuary in the Empire. The title would most likely be appointed by the Freeborn National Assembly, but there is no requirement that the title holder be a priest. It would be a freeborn national position, however. In addition to the ministry, and the responsibility to promote abolitionism and provide safe homes for refugees, the Hand of Guerra would be an obvious person for other abolitionists to contact with proposals that would help spread Guerra's philosophy. Money spent into Hand of Guerra. 7 crowns would produce 6 liao. 17 crowns would produce 12 liao. 34 crowns would produce 18 liao. 50 crowns would produce 24 liao. The offices of the Broken Shore Bounty could be re-established in Madruga. The Broken Shore Bounty is a national boar seat controlled by the Brass Coast. The ilium that the seat provides is claimed from the fishing nets of the boats that ply their trades along the coast of the Bay of Catasar. A portion of all such finds are claimed by the Broken Shore Bounty. While some fisherfolk resent the claim, the majority appreciate that the Freeborn are instrumental in helping to keep opportunistic raiders out of imperial waters. That a portion of any ilium found is a minor loss compared to the complete loss of catch, ship, livelihood and liberty that an encounter with a Grendel raiding vessel would represent. Previously, the officers of the Broken Shore Bounty were in the town of Khazar. The ilium was collected and overseen by members of the Iorieni family, who had extensive ties with fishing families and mercantile ship owners throughout the Brass Coast and the southern territories of the League, Highguard and Urizen. Unfortunately, thanks to the recent invasion of Feroz by the Grendel, the officers of the Broken Shore Bounty are no longer in freeborn hands, and the Ioreni are scattered through the bay. The bounty provides a significant incentive to freeborn corsairs to hunt the Grendel, but it is also an important symbol of national pride. There is some talk, especially in Madruga, of the urgent need to re-establish the officers of the bounty as quickly as possible. The bounty is one of those rare boar seats where the actual material provided does not come from a specific location. It is merely gathered in one place for convenience. With a suitable Senate motion, the location of the offices could be moved. The most obvious location to move it is to Sirok, perhaps the best protected location in the Brass Coast thanks to the presence of the Salt Guard. Relocating the officers of the Broken Shore Bounty will cost the Imperial Treasury 10 thrones, but can be completed in 3 months, and could take place at the same time as gathering a new bounty of Ilium together. If the motion were passed during the coming summit, the Broken Shore Bounty would be available to appoint at the autumn equinox, providing a reduced amount of 4 rings of Ilium. From that point onward, the amount of Ilium would stabilise at the usual 7 rings each season, and the normal appointment cycle would resume. This is not without potential consequence, however. Moving the Broken Shore Bounty indicates that the Senate does not believe the Corsairs of the Khazar Straits are up to the task of protecting it. It would be a major blow to the Eoriene family, and likely damage the morale of the Corsair families of Feroz. Furthermore, it would indicate to the people of Feroz that the Empire does not anticipate driving the Grendel out of their territory in the immediate future, again potentially damaging the morale of the people who live there.